Hello to all the reds, purples and blues out there who may be listening. I guess today I just wanted to make a video on what it takes to qualify as a MGTOW, and of course there's been a lot of conversation about that in the recent past from a lot of people, notwithstanding Paul Elam's video on marriage and MGTOW. But first off, I just wanted to shout out, a big shout out in fact, to the Mayor of MGTOWN, who, after all, if it wasn't for his video on International Men's Day and his request for MGTOWs to make their first videos, I probably wouldn't have made this video, to be honest. And obviously I'm far too late to get it in before the International Men's Day, but obviously far too much to do and far too little time to do it, as most people have. But anyway, as I said, big shout out to the Mayor. It probably won't be my last video, but if it wasn't for him, probably wouldn't have made one. Anyway, back to the topic. Look, I think it's important for us all to have a conversation and to reach some form of clarity about exactly where we stand on it, in terms of what actually qualifies someone as MGTOW. And I guess I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, just because it was the first video, and I think it's a topic worthy of discussion, or at least to throw some opinion around anyway. And again, this is just my opinion, but I think there's a couple of essential criteria for being MGTOW, and I think both of them stem from the acronym itself. And the first one is that you have to be a man. I think, to me, that's actually a no-brainer. I think you need to be a man to be MGTOW. You can be a woman and agree with MGTOW. You can be a woman and be WGTOW. But you can't be MGTOW any more than I could be WGTOW. I think it's just common sense within the acronym itself, and it's exactly why the acronym was invented. By whom, I don't know. But anyway, that's I think a no-brainer. The second one, I think, is that I don't believe you can be married or in a long-term relationship. Now, getting back to Paul Elam's video, I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but Paul attempted to link marriage and MGTOW by way of seemingly to ignore the word own within the MGTOW acronym. And I think in doing so, he tried to evade that word purposefully to try and align himself with MGTOW for unknown reasons to me. But I think he can be going his way all he likes and be married, and that is his way, that's fine. But he's not going his own way, and I think that's an important distinction. And I think it's an important distinction as far as MGTOW is concerned in general. I think if you're in a marriage, certainly a marriage, and a long-term relationship, you're simply not going your own way, at least not 100% of the time, or as much as MGTOW traditionally would. Well, I say traditionally, it's not really an old school type of notion, but than a normal MGTOW would, or an unmarried MGTOW would. I don't include short-term relationships in that, because I can see areas where MGTOWs could be in short-term relationships, particularly if they happen to be a pick-up artist and they pick up somebody for a night, and technically it's a short-term relationship, but you could be in some fairly short-term relationships of weeks, or perhaps even months, I suppose, and simply refuse to succumb to any direct or indirect attempts to manipulate you into doing things that you don't want to do. So I think from a technical perspective, I think, yeah, you could be in a short-term relationship and be MGTOW, but I'd be happy to hear everyone's comments on this, because, yeah, technically I wouldn't include it, but I shouldn't say technically. For my mind, short-term relationships are out as well, but that's for my way of living, not necessarily for everyone else's. But I can see where it can occur. So I think the fundamental criteria for being MGTOW ought to be, as a minimum, you've got to be a man, you can't be in a long-term relationship or married. I think that's it, as far as I'm concerned. But additionally, and this is for me personally, I think there needs to be a level of asset and resource protection. If you choose to be in a short-term relationship, I think it's important to note that in each country of the world, in different states, territories and provinces, there may well be in your areas specific laws, particularly relating to things like common law and de facto relationships, which legally entitle other people to a share of your resources. Now, I can't speak to everyone's areas, but all I can suggest is that as a MGTOW, I think it's probably essential that people know what those laws are and take steps to protect themselves from them and from the legal application. Can't even speak. The legal application of those laws to your particular situations, and I think it's important that we get that out there for all MGTOWs to understand and recognise, and to take the time to understand what those laws are and how to best protect themselves from the application of those laws. I think that's, for me at least anyway, I think that's critical. I think that's one of the important things about being MGTOW, is to protect your assets at the same time, as well as your lifestyle and your way of life. But anyway, that's, I think, it for me. I can't think of any other real basic fundamental criteria for being a MGTOW. And I don't think anyone should really get in and muddy the waters in what I would see as being something akin to what Atheism Plus tried to do with atheism. I don't think also we should allow the waters to be muddied by people such as Paul trying to include things like marriage into it. Whether it was for his own gain or not, I don't know. But I think we need to limit the definitions to the fundamentals. And I think for mine, I think those fundamentals that I listed are pretty much it. Just the two. I mean, obviously, being a man and being unmarried and not in a long-term relationship, I think are probably it for me. And I don't think it really needs to go any further than that. We don't want to include any other criteria which just doesn't have its place in there. Like, for example, pick-up artists or manginas or white knights or any of that sort of thing. The reason why, particularly for white knights, I know it sounds probably counterintuitive, but for me, a white knight can also be said to include men who are simply coming to the aid of women to be able to sleep with them on a one-night stand basis and simply dump them. It doesn't make you any more or less MGTOW. Not in my mind anyway, but I'd really be happy to hear comments on that sort of thing. But I think if we stick to just the basics, I think we'll probably put ourselves on the right track. And the best part for me about MGTOW is it almost has become the last bastion of malehood available on the planet which can't be penetrated by women. And not that that's a bad thing. Oh, sorry, hang on. What am I saying? Not that it's a bad thing in itself that it's women. It just remains a male space. I don't have anything personally against women, but I do have a great personal deference to my assets becoming someone else's property legally within a gynocentric legal system. That's my main issue with the way things are at the moment, and one of the major reasons why I became MGTOW. But anyway, more on that later. As I said, I wanted to try and keep them short, and this is probably about as long as I really want to go. So take care, guys. Enjoy your lives, and hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.